Good evening, everybody. We are going to record this meeting, so if anybody wasn't able to tune in tonight, we'll have that recording available. Ron's gonna I'll have him introduce himself and his more than 50 years of experience with the railroad in North Conway. He'll explain a lot of that stuff, so you don't have to listen to me say it as well. One of the things, though, that we are going to do is, so we can get through the program, it's about an hour, then there'll be a quick break and then a DVD after that. So we will not have any questions along the way, just so he can keep going through his presentation. It's not that we don't usually have some really, really good questions, but just in the effort of time,
they have permission
we'll
to
do it.
correct errors, which it may be some.
But you said you were perfect. So, anyway, I'm going to let Ron take it from here and enjoy.
So when contemplating assembling a program of reasonable length on the subject of the Conway Scenic's 50th anniversary, I began to realize that the complexity of this dynamic tourist line would make this a challenge. So I was going to give you all a choice tonight. We could do the hour version, or we could really go into the weeds. And I can see there's plenty of liquid back there, coffee, and we could maybe finish up around 3 a.m. So I give you the choice. We could do the hour program, which if I do the hour program, you got to zip your lips, unless there is a really terrible mistake that I have made, which is entirely possible. And there's so much detail here that may be an issue. So do voice something, Ron, that's not right. All right, something like that. So in order to cover the whole 50 years, I've had to make some compromises. I'm focusing on the first 15 years because I lived it. I've tried to strike a balance between the human element, with literally hundreds of people involved, along with the incredible diversity of equipment. And I'm also tying in the Conway Scenic with the 470s Club's cooperation over the years. So I'm going to start with a history, a short history of before the Conway Scenic, and then we'll launch into the Conway Scenic itself. Okay, so to illustrate some little early history in the geographic area I'm covering, I pulled a few photos from Dwight Smith's tourist books. The Portland and Ogdensburg from Portland punched through Crawford Notch and started running trains through there in 1875. The 470 Club's epic 400-page book on the Mountain Division covers the whole history in detail. Now, the Portsmouth, Great Falls, and Conway extended north out of Portsmouth and reached North Conway in 1872, then connected with the Portland and Ogdensburg at Intervale in 1874. The first picture shows the North Conway station and four-stall engine house in the 1870s with a wood-burning locomotive. The station itself had short-lived canopies, shown here in 1915. You can see a stagecoach on the right. Conway's, okay, now it's not moving forward. Conway's ornate station, here shown here in 1907, is now just a busy Route 25 grade crossing and the terminus of the Conway Scenic. Snow trains became popular in the 1940s, originating in Boston for day skiers. After detraining passengers, the empty trains would head for Bartlett to turn on the Y. And here's an early 1950s view of 3 snow trains with E7s and a Pacific ready to head south. Skiers are headed for Mount Cranmore on school buses. You can see one in the background. Here is the streamlined Mountaineer crossing the Saco River in 1940, which was later replaced by a through truss steel structure. This summer train would pass through North Conway on its way up through the White Mountains. It became the Flying Yankee in the off-season when it started operating over the Main Central tracks on the other side of North Conway. Today, it resides at the Hobo Railroad in Lincoln, New Hampshire, and is for sale. Wouldn't you love to see that based out of Bartlett, turning on the Y there, and then maybe up at Fabian's, another Y, and running back and forth. All right. Does anybody recognize this short line? Why have I included it? Well, it's the Springfield Terminal, and it's part of the Dwight Smith story. He grew up in Brooklyn, New York, having a boyhood Lionel train set, and he spent summers at his family's home in Groton, Vermont, waving to the Montpelier and Wells River Railroad, which passed within sight of his home. He entered World War II and served in the Navy, seeing action in the Pacific on a battleship. Dwight got a degree at Dartmouth College in 1947 and began working for the Boston and Maine as a freight clerk in the traffic department. He stayed there for 26 years, working his way up through management. He became the sales agent for the B&M owned 6-mile-long electrified Springfield Terminal Railway. In 1955, he suggested ways to make the little line more profitable. And guess what? The B&M made him general manager in 1956. How did he make it more valuable? He sold the copper line and bought a 44-tonner with it, this 44-tonner right here. The Springfield Terminal ran along the Black River out of Springfield and connected with the B&M. And for some time, the railroad charged a toll for cars to cross this rail highway bridge to get to Springfield. Dwight left the short line in 1959 and moved to Portland, Maine. By the way, this rail line is now rail trail. He became responsible for all Boston and Maine sales in Maine and the maritime provinces, Canadian provinces. In 1968, Dwight rode a snow train to North Conway and was impressed by the rail facilities there. While he was there the day, he inquired around town and found out who owned the structures. And when he got home, he immediately called Carol Reed, owner of Carol Reed Clothing Company, Bill Levy, owner of the golf course across from the station in the valley next to the Saco River. They owned the station, turntable, and engine house and property, but didn't know what to do with them, except that they didn't want to see them torn down. So Dwight made an offer that they form a 3-way partnership to form a tourist railroad, with he supplying the equipment. They agreed and thought it would be an easy task to buy the 5.5 mile to Conway, since the floundering, financially stressed B&M was selling off unprofitable branch line. It was known that they wanted to sell the tracks from Ossipee to Intervale. However, this was not to be. They wanted to pull up the rails and sell them for scrap. It took 6.5 years of court proceedings to take possession of the tracks. In 1968, April, Dwight spotted a steam locomotive for sale in Trains magazine, and it was located in Sarnia, Ontario. He bought it for $7,500. When he told Gertrude, or G, his wife, that he had bought a steam locomotive, she thought it was a brass HO model. When he told her that it weighed 100 tons, she nearly fainted. But once the shock wore off, she happily worked with Dwight for the remainder of their 62 years of married life. So Dwight traveled with the former ex-Grand Trunk 060-7470 to Maine Central's Rigby Yard in November 1968. It was placed beside the engine house on a sidetrack. And Dwight is shown in this picture removing the 7 and the 0 to make a new number, 47, more easily pronounced. in the spring of 1969. In 1989, it was changed back to its original number. Oh, the XGT switcher looks cold and forlorn during the winter of 1968-69. While track acquisition dragged on, as the B&M tried to sell the tracks for scrap, Dwight persevered as the forever optimist. He stretched his personal finances by buying passenger cars and freight equipment. I discovered 47 as a junior in high school and ventured down to Rigby, a couple miles from my house, each weekend, along with others, to work on the locomotive to further its future operation. Here it has been primed for a role in a movie. In the spring of 1971, it was painted in B&M colors, towed to Dover, New Hampshire, to appear in a movie called Separate Peace. In November 1971, a Portland terminal Alco S1 pulls 47 from its siding onto the turntable in preparation for its final move to North Conway. Here it is moving west through Rigby Yard to Portsmouth. Then it will go up the Conway branch to its new home. Here are some of the original volunteers who gathered in front of the stall 1 just after 47 arrived in November 71. Forgive me, but I don't remember everyone's name, but Dwight is on the left. Third in is Ben English. Then comes Tim Zemont and Arthur Purchase with his New Haven sweatshirt. And here are more of the original volunteers gathered in front of 47. And we have Greg on the left, Brad Hutchins, who should be watching tonight, then Dave Penny, Wayne Allen with a shovel, pole shovel, Arthur Purchase, Gordon Lang with Dwight Smith eating peanuts to gather some quick energy on the right. You know, Dwight was always affirming his volunteers, many of whom would become paid employees once the railroad became operational. One perk was his generosity in taking sometimes the dozen volunteers who showed up on a Saturday to the Big Pickle Diner for lunch across the street from the station near the main central. Dave Penny was hired as the master mechanic in charge of 47's restoration. He formerly worked with steam on the Berlin Mills Railway. The Boston and Maine's gravel train Power and Caboose paused at the station in April of 72, and you can see 47 poking its head out of the roundhouse stall. And looking the other way, we're looking out from inside the engine house as the two GP9s clad in a simplified blue paint scheme in front of the station. The last Boston and Maine train to Intervale passes through North Conway on October 24th, 1972. It was on its way, the SW9 is picking up 4 Grand Trunk boxcars, which will be torn down and used as open cars on the Conway Scenic. And here's some local children watching the rare freight move in North Conway Yard. At least you could you call it a yard? Maybe not at this point, as the boxcars are dropped off. Now, many of the volunteers on Conway Scenic wore many hats to bring about its birth. Wayne Duffett on the left, who's sitting down front, and Wayne Allen, the two Waynes, are cutting trees along the right-of-way to improve the views. Later on in the program, you'll see them again working together on different jobs. Notice that it looks like their first saw blade is stuck. Fortunately, they brought another saw. Now, I'm not sure where their chainsaw was at this point. Wayne, can you illuminate us? Oh, okay. All right. The first major building project came in the fall of 1972. This involved replacing the tar paper and shingle roof on the engine house And we have left to right, Bob Fahrenkopf, and then Dwight Smith is sitting, never afraid to get his hands dirty. Now here's Wayne Duffett again with a shovel this time in the foreground, and Stevie Briggs in his little red wagon, and Dave Albert from Waterville. Whole families came together to make the Conway Scenic happen. Dwight on the left and his daughter Laurel on the right, with a friend in the middle, finished tarring the last strip of roofing. John Egan, now here's a story right here. I think I showed a movie of this last fall, but John Egan, conductor on the Grand Trunk, Ron Johnson and myself and Ken Coombs bought 3 retired wooden GT cabooses. In May 1973, they moved them from Portland via Main Central's RY2 to Intervale, where they were set off in the weeds. The plan was to move them to the North Conway yard, but how? There was no operating locomotives at the time. And after a month of wondering what to do, the decision was made not by them. An arsonist discovered a box of fusees in one of the cabooses and set all 3 on fire. Fortunately, the fire department arrived and promptly put out the fires with minimal interior and exterior damage. However, immediately, a bucket loader was engaged, the 3 cabooses coupled together and set in motion. You see, it was all downhill the mile to the North Conway yard. In my program on the Main Central last fall, I showed the movie of the 3 cabooses gliding silently across the Route 302 crossing. John Egan controlled the speed with the brake wheel on my caboose, and riding up front is Wayne Duffett and Bob, little Wayne Duffett, and Bob Fahrenkopf. Ken Coombs watches, and Niels Johnson, my dad, is doing the filming above near the railroad crossing sign. And Bobby McDonald flags on July 4th, 1973. The bucket loader finally caught up with us, the cabooses in North Conway Yard, and pushed them onto a siding, thus ending one of the most unusual moves, if not the most unusual move, on the Conway Scenic. Well, the forlorn-looking North Conway station in the fall of '73 had not received a coat of paint in at least 20 years. Also in 1973, Dwight resigned from the B&M and moved to Conway, fed up with their track delay tactics. I'm putting the finishing touches on my caboose with the lettering in August of '73. My caboose added a splash of color to the otherwise drab yard and station in the winter of 1973. I repaired and repainted the inside, shown here holding an emergency brake in the cupola. I moved my piano into the caboose to play railroad tunes in the evening. I loved to pick blueberries along the sandy right-of-way and would make blueberry pies, and I gave pieces to Dwight and G and other employees. Here's my wife, Colleen, and daughters, Crystal and Emily, and I stand on the back platform just prior to selling my caboose in 1988. Yeah, you see, when I brought Colleen into the caboose for the first time when we were dating in 1982, the year we got married, she said, "Ron, it's kind of small for a family, isn't it?" So we sold the caboose. But this summer, my wife, Colleen, daughters, Crystal and Emily, and I, in this past summer, 35 years later, I brought my children and grandchildren to ride the Conway Scenic and explore my former caboose, which had not changed in 40 years in interior. Crystal, my older daughter, stands next to my wife in blue. Ernie and Brian Fanslaw, who now own the caboose, graciously allowed us to peek inside. And here is the 3rd generation of Conway Scenic aficionados, my grandchildren climbing the ladder into the cupola. In the winter of 1973-74, the station underwent a remarkable transformation. paneling and floors, as you can see in the foreground, began to gleam. Here is a completely restored ticket office. Dwight Smith and good friend Emmons Lancaster, head of bridges and buildings on the Main Central, pose in front of CN 484-6218 on an excursion pausing at Victoriaville, Quebec in August of '71. They not only worked for railroads, but also were able to make trains their hobby as well. Both were 470 Club trustees. Dwight was the editor of the 470 newsletter for about 25 years. Dwight has said that the Conway Scenic would not have been able to operate if Emmons hadn't spearheaded track refurbishment to Conway. Before the announced startup date of August 4th, 1974, the fever pitch of preparations increased. The first part of the year, a new runaround switch just north of the station was installed. And here is Dwight on the left and Emmons on the right, leveling the switch. One of our most important employees was Courtney Gregg. He was hired to aid Dave Penny in the restoration of 47. Dwight had the uncanny ability to judge potential employees of where they would serve best. Courtney was literally hired off the street with his only experience as being a garage repairman. And he went on to be the driving force to keep 47 in good operating condition for many years, and recently retired after 41 years of full-time faithful work on the Conway Scenic. Lancaster's Legions, or so they were dubbed, are preparing to leave the yard on a track repair project somewhere down the line to Conway. Emmons' two daughters, Barbara and Nancy, would many times accompany him, not being afraid of heavy manual labor. And here they are returning in the afternoon, Lancaster's Legions with mission accomplished. Emmons checks out the overall track condition to Conway before the first run in a Main Central truck on tracks. One of our original volunteers is George Small, a small cadre of original Conway Scenic, who has been the master woodworker on the Conway Scenic. And to this moment, to today, he's shown repairing a piece of molding on the railroad's Main Central RPO car. George has been responsible for countless both new and old wood refurbishment projects on the Conway Scenic. One of his latest projects has been the reconfiguration of car 1133, the Mount Washington, into a closed, transparent compartments for small groups of people. He also just finished refurbishing the engine house doors before he had a minor health setback. All right. More examples of people wearing many hats is shown here in installing new seats in an open coach. Courtney Gregg on the left is taking a break from work on 47 to help along with Gordon Lang and a growing up Stevie Briggs. Husband and wife team Dottie and Dave Lampson are working to make a signal operational. Gordon Lang, locomotive engineer, also an expert carpenter, is on the roof of one of the ex-GT boxcars being converted into an open car. And Dwight's daughter-in-law Sue and daughter Laurel also contribute to the project completion in the summer of 1974. In other words, all hands on deck. And here is a completed open car dubbed a Cinder Collector Club Car, and is ready for service after a paint job and lettering by me. The Conway Scenic participated in the bicentennial celebrations by painting one of the open cars in a red, white, and blue scheme. The plan is, hopefully, to restore one of these original open cars for operation as part of the 50th celebration on August 4. Here is Ken Coombs and Dwight painting Ken's Combine in July of '74, the first operational passenger car. Then I added the finishing touches of lettering. Dwight offered me a full-time job painting buildings and equipment for the Conway Scenic right out of college at a starting pay of $2 an hour. However, don't forget, in those days, gas was less than $1 a gallon, so everything's relative. One perk of this job for me and others is as long as we work for the Conway Scenic, we could keep our own personal rail equipment on company property for free. So I started painting the station single-handedly with brush, paint pad, and roller in June of '74. After the gold main body paint was applied, next came the 2 coats of white trim, including the 20 or so supporting columns for the canopy around the station platform. The super detailing including painting the window trim brown. After ascending the semaphore pole, I added the finishing touches. And then I love the before and after shots. Dwight mounts the name boards on the front and back of the station. One of the striking features of the Russian-inspired design of the station are its 2 distinct metal domes. Dwight made sure that they were accented properly with 1974 Cadillac copper paint. And I'm helping with the spraying. But he's doing the actual spraying because even at that time, it's like $40 a gallon, maybe more, as I remember. While the station was being painted, new asphalt was laid under the platforms in July. Gordon Lang is at the roller controls. Signaling that all is well, a rainbow arcs over the newly painted station, a 2-month process. North Conway Station gleams in the early morning sun across the common at the end of July '74. All right. Dwight, as I said, never shied away from any dirty job. Where is he right now? He's scaling rust from the inside of 47's firebox. Now, here's one of my favorite shots of Dwight. Showing that he's not just a white shirt manager, Dwight poses between his 2 friends, Ken Coombs and Larry Blank, 470 trustee. This chance meeting occurred after the first firing up of 47 on August 2nd. By the look of Dwight's sooty black arms and hands and where they were, I'm sure that these 2 guys wore Dwight's black handprints on their white shirts as badges of honor. The first steam run to Conway occurred on August 3rd, 1974, for just Conway Scenic employees riding in the Combine, and the special is shown leaving Conway. Prior to the first run on August 4th with paying passengers, 3 biplanes from the White Mountain Airport in North Conway fly over the station in the morning, honoring the occasion. The first paying passenger train crests the 3% grade coming into the North Conway yard on August 4th, and the afternoon sun glints off this first train arriving at the station. So 47 went back in the engine house for a short time to be fully painted. I'm lettering the tender while Larry Blank watches from above. And then it came back and out in all its glory, even though the engine house would not be painted until next year. And here is a ticket from the 1974 operating season on the Conway Scenic. So Dwight started his job announcing the departure and arrival of trains bound for Conway. In the 3 months of operation in 1974, the railroad carried 21,000 passengers. So that's the plus side. And also, finally, in September '74, an attorney for the B&M came to North Conway with the deed to the track to Conway and the land around the terminus in Conway in exchange for a large check. The 3 partners formally formed the Conway Scenic Railroad with the intent to become debt-free in 10 years, which they did. And here is Dwight and his beloved wife, G. They were fixtures in the ticket office handling a myriad of details. And a common scene inside the busy station at the tickets office during train activity. The gift shop has been staffed by multitudes of faithful workers. And here is Dwight comparing watches with the conductor, Joe Ryan, to make sure the trains run on time. As equipment was repaired and painted, it was added to the consist. Here in August '74, a Conway Scenic train leaves Conway with Mount Kearsarge in the background. And here's a rare photo special leaving North Conway facing south in August '74, with White Horse and Cathedral Ledges in the background, looking across Bill Levy's golf course. The Conway Scenic in its early days was fortunate to have engineers who actually worked during steam days, like Charlie Metcalf, riding the turntable with 47. And here he is oiling the running gear. Another engineer with steam experience on the Bangor and Aroostook was Forrest Bunker. Maine Central's Mountain Freight RY2 is about to drop off a hopper car of coal for 47 to pick up and take at Intervale to take back to North Conway. And here is another hopper car of coal with Wayne Duffett flagging. It's about to cross Route 302 with the railroad's versatile little bucket loader in charge. So I showed you a picture earlier in the show of the two Waynes cutting brush. Now we see both of them working together again. Wayne Allen as engineer on 47, and Wayne Duffett shoveling coal into 47's firebox as fireman. Both are examples of a few folks, faithful folks, still working on Conway Scenic property. Wayne Duffett is now an engineer, and Wayne Allen has retired from steam operation and now works restoring classic diesel locomotives back to operation, which we'll see later in the program. Brothers and sisters work together, like Sam Bartlett operating the steam locomotive, and his sister Sally serving the public on board the train. Dave Albert from Waterville, one of the original volunteers, makes a locomotive coach coupling in Conway in 1974. Joey and Lawrence Brown, a former Maine Central employee, compare watches. Lawrence was noted for his custom-framed Maine Central billboard timetables made from teak he retrieved from the Maine Central water tank not far from his home in Belgrade. And I have several of these beautiful billboard timetables framed upstairs in my model railroad. Here's Les McDonald wiping down an open coach railing. John Egan, a conductor on the Grand Trunk, was a valuable asset on the railroad for professional train operations. Dwight honored his employees with an annual picnic like this one in 1977, including spouses as well. And then banquets were also given at the end of the operating season. G. Smith has made a special train cake for a picnic. After a days of excursion, 47 first takes a spin on the turntable and slowly will back into the engine house, where a banked fire will keep it hot for the next day's trips to Conway. In 1975, I've painted the engine house and bunk car to the left. This view was taken from the station roof. Here's a low-angle view of 47 beginning its day's excursions. Wayne Allen and I created a dramatic night photo of freshly painted 47. 47 ascends the 3% grade in 1976 with the bicentennial car near the end of the train. And then 47 crosses the still backwater of the Swift River as it leaves Conway. In 1975, it was decided that a diesel locomotive was needed to back up 47, and a former Main Central 44-tonner 15 was located. The funding was kind of uniquely provided by starting a Locomotive 15 Corporation. It was opened up to Conway Scenic friends and employees who received dividends each year for their investment. And here it is, painted up and ready for the 1975 season. A cool shot could be had from the fire station tower in 1975 with a much spruced up yard. Even the freight house has been painted. Locomotive 15 leaves an excursion across Moat Brook Trestle for Conway with a near perfect reflection. In December 75, it was decided to try selected weekends of operation using Locomotive 15. A plow train was first run to North Conway in the morning before the afternoon excursion train. Before the advent of drones, I like to gain elevation by finding, for instance, a pine tree to climb. My effort was rewarded with a great elevated picture of 15 and the afternoon train out of North Conway with the Moat mountain range and, of course, Mount Washington looming in the background. Note, there aren't too many people riding in the open bicentennial car. So 15 was eventually repainted in its classic black with red and white nose stripes when it operated in the Main Central. It last operated in 2005 and was sold to the Southern Prairie Railroad, where it operates today. And this is a Joe Doyle's photo. The next steam locomotive to arrive was oil burner ex-Reeder Railroad Prairie 108 in 1976. Here it's showing its fresh candy apple green paint in 1976. Here it's blasting up the grade to the station. It was retired in 1988 after a boiler failure and deemed too expensive to repair or operate it. And it was sold to a Texas short line in 1999. Railfan's Day in 1978 saw 2 locomotives under steam for the first time in perhaps 25 years. The second half of this program will feature a sound movie of this particular Railfan's Day with some wonderful double heading. Part of this special day included 47 pulling a 2-car matched Pullman Green contest, including the Main Central RPO car and coach. And then the highlight of the day was a steam doubleheader shown crossing Moat Brook Trestle on the way back to North Conway. And from the engine house roof is the duo arriving at the North Conway station. The first paid freight movement for the Conway Scenic was when they moved a huge brush slasher from Intervale to Conway with steam locomotive 108 on July 30th, 1980. Another diesel addition occurred in 1982 when ex-Portland Terminal S4 arrived on the property. 1055 crests the grade with a large consist in 1982 and the classic Portland Terminal colors it wore originally on that switching railroad. It was sold to the Down East Scenic Railroad in 2010, located in Ellsworth, where it operates today. The 470 Railroad Club has partnered with the Conway Scenic for many years. It bought B&M F7 4266 in 1981 and moved it to the Conway Scenic. By 1984, it has been painted and restored to operation and leased to the Conway Scenic for occasional use. In 1975, Dwight bought a work car on the Bangor Aroostook, which had formerly been used in passenger service on the railroad and known as the Aroostook. After much research, Dwight discovered that this amazing special sleeper lounge observation car built in the late 1800s, had run on the famed Pennsylvania Limited between New York and Chicago. A restoration effort began by stripping paint down to the beautiful wood paneling. The fully restored Pullman car has been renamed the Gertrude Emma in honor of Dwight's wife, G, and been painted in its original colors. Here's the interior of this extra fair car. The Gertrude Emma many times brings up the rear of the Valley train. Now the next picture is why I asked my wife to come tonight. My wife, Colleen, and I pose on the back platform of the Gertrude Emma on our wedding day in 1982. There have been also other weddings on the Conway Scenic over the years. Now we're going to show you a few Maine Central Mountain Division freight trains, like this publicity shot of the new GP38s heading our way 2, entering the gateway of Crawford Notch in the latter's 1960s. RY1 enters the gateway on October 13, 1981, with the Crawford Notch depot in the background. The last rays of a July 77 day strike RY2 as it ascends the 2.5% grade through Crawford Notch, crossing Willybrook Bridge. This was the cover shot of the July 78 issue of Railfan magazine, when I had a feature article on the Maine Central. RY2 makes a late day appearance at Glen Jackson in August of 74. And YR1 lifts its train up the grade at Intervale in January 78 with U18B 401 leading. The last YR1 passes Sawyers River Station on September 3rd, 1983, with GP38 252 now owned by the Conway Scenic Railroad. The 470 Club received ex-Maine Central Consolidation 501 from Steamtown and is shown pausing at Crawford Notch Depot on November 19, 1983. Oily rags have been put in the smokestack and lit on fire for the benefit of the rail fans lined up to photograph it, seemingly fired up. This locomotive is now in the engine house at North Conway and owned by the Conway Scenic. After 47 is returned to active service, attention will return to restoring 501 to operation. It actually ran on the Mountain Division. The state would buy the Mountain Division and lease the track to the Conway Scenic. The Taurus line started operations from North Conway to Crawford Notch Depot in 1995. Guilford Safety Express traveled over the Mountain Division and on September 29, 1983, just a few days after the last YR1 ran over the line. It backed down the Conway branch from Intervale and is posed in front of the North Conway station. Dwight retired from the Conway Scenic in 1990, and Russ Sable, with his wife Dot, pictured here, took over as president, general manager, and eventual owner. Sable continued to expand operations with the addition of 2 full-service dining cars, including the Shakora and Hattie Evans, and the Dome observation car, Dorothea May. He was the founder of the Santa's Holiday Express, Polar Express, plus annual events like a Day Out with Thomas and the Pumpkin Patch Express, which added greatly to the overall patronage. Here's a sampling of Sable's new rail trips introduced on the Conway Scenic, started with the Santa's Holiday Express, later replaced with the super popular Polar Express. And then we have Thomas the Tank Engine excursion. This is a photo was taken by Precious Escapes Photography. And then we have the Pumpkin Patch Express, where children love to pick out their own pumpkin. Here is the Dorothea May dome car used on Great Northern's Empire Builder, passing through the rock cut at the gateway to the Notch. It was put into service in 2002. This photo is by Peter O. Johnson. Here's an interesting shot taken by Brian Solomon, Public Relations Director for the Conway Scenic, from the locomotive running around the Mountaineer at Crawford Notch with the same dome car on the left. Now we're inside the, this is where I'm going to try enlarging this a little bit. Second here. There we go. We're inside the dining car Shakora. And here guests are being served inside the Shakora. In 1995, the Conway Scenic bought Main Central GP7 573 from Pan Am and painted it in its original maroon. 573 climbs the graded intervale with a fresh coat of new snow on the top of Mount Washington, hauling the Sawyers River train. It was Main Central President Spencer Miller's favorite locomotive used on his two-car business train. Here it is leading an inspection train at Notchland in August '74 in its classic wedding cake paint scheme. Now here's a photo courtesy of Brian Solomon, shows 573 on the point of a Railfan's Day freight train at Conway. You can spot 470 Club equipment like the Bangor Rustic orange reefer and red, white, and blue boxcar. And here's another beautifully repainted B&M boxcar owned and restored by the 470 Club. Many of the next series of pictures, and this is where I've really been very helped out by Brian Solomon to help me fill in some of the gaps in the more recent history of the Conway Scenic. This is a shot by Brian Solomon, who right now is in the process of writing a 50th anniversary book on the Conway Scenic. The railroad bought two former Via FP9s in 1995 for use on the Mountaineer. U-23B 2820 was purchased in 2006 because it had dynamic braking capabilities, which the FP9s did not. It took over for a time for the FP9s, but unfortunately suffered a broken crankshaft in 2007, and it was off the property in 2011. The FP9s soldiered on until traded into Pan Am in 2010 for use on their business train. Conway Scenic received in trade former Main Central GP38 252, which handled the last YR1, along with GP35 216. This photo was taken by Jim Foley. Brian Solomon organized a rare morning photo special with GP38 252 and GP35 216. To honor their past Main Central service, they were both painted into the Harvest Gold scheme with Conway Scenic lettering. They're descending Willowbrook Bridge downgrade in brilliant sunshine. 7470's greatest achievement was when it headed a one-time 5-car excursion sponsored by the Mass Bay RRE on July 31st, 2011, up through Crawford Notch. Here it is on a photo run by across Willowbrook Bridge, and this photo is by Doug Scott. And here's the Mountaineer arriving in North Conway with a GP35 leading. Brian Solomon took this wonderful picture of both of the 470 Club's ex-B&M F7s, 4266 and 68. They make a dramatic appearance in the afternoon on the famed Frankenstein trestle on a late October club excursion. And here's another 470 Club excursion for members and friends with two dome cars. The 4268 is leading, and it sat on display in the yard in North Conway for 20 years before receiving a prime mover and trucks from a derelict GP9 1751 from the Finger Lakes Railway, and it was restored to operation in 2020. And here's this 470 Club late fall excursion crossing Woolly Brook Bridge with the looming Mount Willard in the background. In 2008, the Conway Scenic purchased this former New Haven RDC to be used during the off-season on the Valley Train and special charters. This photo by Brian Solomon shows Millie coming across Moat Brook Trestle. Brian's kind of surreal fall foliage shot at Crawford Notch Depot shows former Finger Lakes Railway GP9 1757 still in its previous paint scheme, delivered to the Conway Scenic in 2012. In 2018, Profile Mountain Holdings Corporation, owned by David Swerk, shown here, and business partner Willem Sullivan Jr. bought the Conway Scenic. David and his wife Rhonda worked together with area business leaders to increase ridership and tourism for the mutual benefit of everyone. Under his management, try that a little bit larger here. Under his management, the Conway Scenic has bought 2 more dome cars, including the Rhonda Lee, an ex-Northern Pacific Vista Dome, shown on its first trip in 2020. This dramatic photo taken by Brian Solomon was taken of the dome car crossing Frankenstein Trestle on the Mountaineer. Brian shares his inside view of the Rhonda Lee with passengers enjoying the elevated view of the Saco River. Here's Brian's picture of the newest dome car, the Leslie Ann, which arrived in August of 22. Leslie Ann is a dome sleeper, reconfigured by the previous owner for more seating. All of these dome cars are used on the Mountaineer, the Crawford Notch. Brian shows us a picture of the immaculate interior of Leslie Ann's dome area. Another ex-Main Central GP38 255 was acquired from the Vermont Railway in 2021. It's now it's in its red scheme, but will be eventually painted into the classic Harvest Gold. Brian took this picture of the 255 in Bangor in 1986. Why is this picture included in this show? Well, because the 470 Club acquired ex-B&M GP9 1741 from the Heber Valley Railroad in Utah in December 20. The 1723 in the bold McGinnis paint scheme leads the northbound empty gravel train to Ossipee on July 19, 1978, and is traveling along Milton Pond in Milton, New Hampshire. Mike Lacey took a picture of former Pan Am 72, really the 1741, getting new batteries recently. This locomotive has been started up recently and moved around. Wayne Allen proudly displays a restored piston from the locomotive. He's one of the few original volunteers still working on the Conway Scenic. Like Dwight Smith, shown earlier in the program, covered in soot, Corey Fothergill demonstrates that it takes being willing to be covered with grit and grime in order to keep the Conway Scenic running smoothly. In this case, it's the 1741, which was started up recently. Corey has also been instrumental in the 470 Club acquiring recently the Waterville Wreck Train donated to the club by CSX. As you can see, it's more than just a crane, as can be seen from this photo. It's hoped that this wreck crane will be moved this spring to the yard in North Conway. A new track is going to be laid along the banking out from the turntable, where this will be restored and so that the public can see an example of something rare like this. All right, definitely got to increase the size of this. Hold on, I think I lost it. There it is. All right. John Swerk wants to increase ridership on the Conway Scenic. No, seriously, the Conway Scenic has just bought a bus company to transfer cruise ship passengers from Portland to North Conway to ride the tourist line. And this move has the potential to increase ridership by 25%. Which brings me to the last couple of pictures showing big balloons taking off from the Common in front of the station in the early 80s. After the 470 Club ceased its popular passenger train excursions to Gorham and Island Pond, Vermont in the 70s, it struggled to find its identity with the general public. With its partnership with the Conway Scenic, the club has taken off in preserving and operating classic railroad equipment for everyone to see and enjoy. These pictures also illustrate how the Conway Scenic has taken off and blossomed into a top tourist rail destination under the leadership of Dwight Smith, Russ Sebold, and now John Swerk. John has said, quote, "Plans are to continue to operate the Conway Scenic as a world-class heritage railroad," unquote. Eric Grover presents 47 in all its glory on an RRE Steam in the Snow excursion. And if all goes well, 7470 will be up and steaming for the 50th anniversary celebration on August 4th, 24. If you would like, we could take a short break before I show you a sound movie, Conway Scenic Railfan's Day in 1978, including double-headed steam locomotives. So I'm going to let this sound movie speak for itself, but before Sean pushes the button, Wayne Duffett just told me some really fresh news. The Flying Yankee is Conway, New Hampshire. Wow. Just announced this week. And then he said there's going to be a new building built for it down there. And so he would just as soon see it be a display piece. But anyway, that's really cool that it's going to be in its familiar environment. Hopefully they don't have a date. It'll be, I imagine, trucked or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So as I said, I'm going to let this sound movie. Yes, it just let it speak for itself. It's 1978. It has just a complete, I think a really nice complete. My dad and I put this together. I don't know if we'll have to adjust the volume or not, but. Might want to kill the lights. Can you check with that top thing up above? Okay. You know, there's supposed to be a voice narration here, and I'm not hearing it. Okay. That's all right. We'll just let the steam locomotive do its thing. No, just keep going. That's Emmons Lancaster right there.
bathed in her own steamy mist, 060 number 47 emerges into the bright sunshine from the blackness of stall 1 at the North Conway engine house to begin another day of excursion duties.
No, I've got it.
Dave Penny, master mechanic, hooks up air hoses going from number 47 to the tanks on the turntable, which operates on compressed air.
That's you, Dan. The bell. Oh,
Number 47 takes a 360-degree spin around so that she may back her train to Conway and operate forwards to North Conway. Let's take a ride in the cab from Conway to North Conway with Charlie Metcalf, engineer, and Wayne Duffett, fireman.
there we go.
number 47's tender has to be filled twice a day to fulfill her thirsty needs. Dave Penny takes a specimen of 47's water. The steam train crosses the Swift River out of Conway. Reader 262, number 108. An oil burner is also on the roster. This indeed is going to be a busy Railfan's Day. September 16, 1978, as ex-Main Central 44-tonner number 15 prepares to follow the first passenger train of the day with an extra freight movement. Train number 10 is required to stop at West Side Road since there are no automatic railroad crossing signals and flag it manually. Conway, New Hampshire, where the first passenger train of the day is about to arrive. It will wait on the passing siding and meet the extra freight train from North Conway.
Oh, right you are.
Conductor Dave Albert brings in 108 for a soft, secure coupling. Spectacular events of the day culminated in double-heading 47 and 108, the last two trips. The first one is shown departing Conway with an exciting flurry of engine exhausts. dynamic duo works up the close to 3% grade to the North Conway station area.
Unlock the trigger on it.
Dumping the fire. We're killing it, shooting it, making it dead.
Ron, if you can just come up. I don't have any big prizes for you or anything. I'm just a young kid compared to a lot of the people in the room here, but the talent that is here is amazing for what you've done and my father George has done. To look back at that early stages and the work that you guys did is just simply amazing. I came in the early 80s with Emmons, and a lot of things were going well. And you guys made that happen. So,
And they're still going well.
yeah, but you gave them that foundation. So for you to come tonight along with your wife to give us this information is just truly fabulous.
Yeah, well, anything over a week, and not just because I'm 6'8", I still that way.
So we look forward to another 50 years, right?
One
Never shall be here, but
One thing I would like to say for everybody, number one, it's pretty cool that we had 20 people here in the room and another 20, I think it got up to 24 at one point on Zoom. So it's nice to have about 40 people and growing a little bit again to these different presentation. So it's fabulous. It's a great marketing thing for us to have talent like you showing
Conway
up.
Scenic and the 470 Club have just been a wonderful marriage. And I think it's helped, as I mentioned in my write-up, it's really been the revitalization of the 470 Club, getting the new generation as well as the older generation still soldiering on. But it's wonderful to see this, for instance, this wreck train that's going to be arriving along with the Flying Yankee in the near future too. So it was just thrilling for me to be involved on the ground floor, and you know, so many tourist lines, like the Wolfboro Railroad, is gone by the wayside. So many tourist rails come and go, but to see the Conway Scenic under the leadership of these three guys continue to flourish, and the future looks bright.
Indeed. Hopefully there's more information coming about this summer with 50 years. So pay attention to that. And not that people are going to want to listen to everybody's stories, but if you have some small pieces of things that you've thought of over the years or have experienced up there, it'd be neat to be able to share that, so there could be some consideration to share that with others. So with that, thank you, everybody. Enjoy your night, and either enjoy going to bed if you're in Zoom, or enjoy your drive home if you're here at the station. Thank you.